Good morning and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the woods. And in today's video I've got a bit of a treat for me and a bit of a treat for you. I'm going to be looking at this knife, and this is the TRC Apocalypse. Now I've been after one of these for quite a while, and this one came up second hand but brand new, unused, a few weeks back. And I've been sitting on this for 3 weeks. So I'm quite looking forward to trying this out. One little thing I did notice, it's got a ferro rod holder, but the Light My Fire rod is incredibly tight in it. If this rod wasn't so used, it wouldn't have fitted in there. So I don't exactly know what ferro rod they're expecting you to put in there, but the Light My Fire one is tight. Sheath, Kydex affair. I like Kydex. I think Kydex is great. And this particular one is a very nice example. It's really well made. Retention is excellent. It's got a little thumb ramp there, and I haven't seen that kind of thumb ramp before. And it works perfectly. Got a loop. And this thing, which looks to me about 3.5mm thick. Again, I've never seen Kydex that thick before, so I'm going to have to look into that for my own stuff. The knife is incredibly well made. It truly is a thing of beauty. The spine here is rounded. You know I don't like rounded spines, but I'll put up with it for the fact that the false edge is relatively sharp, and it's got this flat portion here, which I'm assuming is for use with the ferro rod, and that's what I'm going to use anyway. We've got a bit of jimping. Not a fan of jimping, but that's not sharp, it's nice. Rounded off coil, handle, bit more jimping there, protruding tang, and Kydex slabs. And these have obviously been machined before they're put on because they've got grooves on them. It feels very grippy. That came with it, and it's the perfect length for that. So nice and safe for chopping. High sabre grind, secondary bevel, which is very sharp. It shaves. It's not ridiculously sharp, but it's sharp enough for this knife and for the duties this is going to perform. Yes, I'm looking forward to bashing this through some logs. Well, I'm going to light the fire with this knife. I'm not going to use a saw. I'm just going to use this knife and the ferro rod. It's rained all night. We've got intermittent showers, so I need to do quite a bit of wood prep. Well, that was a breeze. The only thing I did find, holding it there to chop, I got a hot spot right there. But when I changed my grip to that, obviously it went. Unfortunately, that didn't split very well. It is dry, but because of the knots, it was just breaking off all over the place. So I'm going to try and find something a bit better so I can shave up. Be careful what you wish for, because it may come true. That'll be fine to shave up. I really do miss the camp in the conifers where everything's split nice and even, because it's not nice and even here, I can tell you. Well, I've just split a lot of wood. All tip split, so relatively thin, but I've got a problem. Not all of it's dry, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to make a massive pile of shavings. Either that, or I go all survival. And what I mean is, seeing as this knife is branded as a survival knife, I'm not doing bushcraft today, it's wet. This is survival fire lighting. There's an old car tyre over there. Good edge retention test. I'm going to take a few slivers off it. That didn't take long. Knife breezed through it. I know a lot of people don't like what some call a secondary V-edge on this kind of knife. I do. A utility survival knife. As long as the steel is good and it can take it, I really like that kind of grind because it cuts well. I think this is a lot of the problem the Selvans had. It wasn't fine enough. Grind was like that. Too much meat behind the blade. And that was, in my opinion, the problem with the Selvans. This has not got that problem. Right then, make some shavings. Now I can probably light this lot up, especially if I tease it a bit fine. I can probably light this with the ferro rod. I've done it in the past. But I'm going to make some shavings. Well, that's 3 feather sticks of various sizes, all done in a different way. Adapt as you go, because this isn't perfect woods for making perfect feather sticks. I've got to basically do what I can with the wood I've got. This knife is great. Right, time to light up. I'm going to burn in the fire pan. As I've said before, it's a lot easier to clean up. The ash, which I split up first, I'm going to put a bed of that down and then build it up. I'm toying with the idea of not using the rubber because I think it'll light without it. I've done the fire layers a crisscross because I want maximum air to get in because it's damp and we've got low pressure, so plenty of air. So this is my first attempt of scraping a ferro rod with this knife, so it may not be perfect, just warning you. Got to get that technique right. Oh yes, it's damp. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to use the rubber. Now I'm finding it difficult with no large scraping surface. Yes, because I really would like to get a good hit the sparks in, and I actually can't. Well, that's really struggling. If I hadn't put the rubber in, it would not have lit. Oh well, I'm going to have to nurture that now until it's an inferno. Right, that's lit. That's not going out. So I think the moral of this story is carry fire lighters. The stuff I used a couple of weeks ago, which I was sent, the pine pitch stuff was excellent. That would not have been a problem. 2 of them in there, not a problem at all. But I'm testing the knife. I'm testing myself. So I'm doing it the hard way. I don't always do it the hard way. If I was on a trip or something, I wouldn't bother. I'd use a fire lighter. Yeah, lack of air does play a part in damp, wet weather fire lighting, it really does. So I have found the knife's flaw, a lack of a decent ferro rod scraper. I know I made that tiny little feather stick. If I hadn't made that, it wouldn't have lit. But lucky for me, I can make little feather sticks. On this knife, the grind is just about perfect for making tiny curls. Right, I need a cup of tea now. I'll get back to you in about 20 minutes. Well, it'll be a matter of seconds for you, but 20 minutes for me. Right, I've had my cup of tea, and when I have a cup of tea I tend to think quite a lot. So I thought I'd share my views with you on this type of knife. Got some other things I want to do, but while it's fresh in my mind, I want to share this with you. Years ago, when the Rambo craze came out in the 80s, I was a young lad, and like everybody else, I bought into the survival knife type of thing. And I remember having one of them really awful survival knives with a big bulbous compass on it, and that was branded as the knife that'll save your life. It won't save shit. Steel was soft, saw didn't work. As soon as you did anything heavy like chopping with it, it wobbled because the nut that held the blade in wasn't threadlocked or anything, and it had just come loose. They were absolute rubbish. What came in the handle was some crappy matches, a crappy fishing kit, and a wire saw that basically as soon as you opened it out it snapped. Complete crap. Well, we've come a long way and we've got this type of thing now, and to be honest with you, this knife is great. I really like it, but it's got its failings. Now, we've gone away from saws because they never work particularly well. They could notch and that's about it. I think the best saw I've ever used on a knife is the Robert Parrish survival knife from the 80s. And I've still got that, and one day I'm going to bring it out and light a fire with it. But that is actually a good knife. But they were expensive at the time. You don't need a saw, but I really think you need a sharp spine. There's a lot of things you can do with a sharp spine. For a start, scraping material. You don't need to make feather sticks. If you can scrape like hell and get a big bundle of scrapings going, then you don't need to make feather sticks. Right, you can't do that with this. So I don't know where these manufacturers are coming from calling them survival knives. This is beautiful. This is so well made. I was hoping I'd be able to get some good sparks off the false edge. I couldn't. They were tiny little sparks. You know, they'd light cotton wool or some really fine tinder, but there was no way they were lighting them damp-ish feather sticks. That portion on the front, yes, it's good. It's nice and sharp. It's just too small. I think perhaps if they'd extended it a bit, could have been better. But generally, on the whole, I think this false edge is a waste of time. It looks nice, but it's a waste of time. I'd rather have a nice flat edge all the way from there up. Now, I have noticed some other knife reviewers on YouTube scraping fat wood with the blade. Now, I don't care how good your steel is. You scrape it enough, it's going to blunten. And that portion there is your cutting edge, which you want to make fine curls with, carve with. Do not scrape with that. If you're going to scrape with any portion, use that portion there, because that's what you chop with, and that doesn't need to be stupidly sharp. My thoughts. Yes, I will give you my final verdict when I'm finished, but my fire is looking a bit pathetic at the moment, so I need to put some more fuel on it, and I've used everything I split earlier, so I'm going to do a bit more chopping and splitting. the stick is back. Well, that was the attempt of a couple of weeks ago with the extremely blunt Booker knife, which was very disappointingly blunt. Well, I'll carry on with that one now with this. No problem. Yeah, it's a big knife, you know, it's not as easy to handle as a smaller utility knife, but it carved that notch just fine. Definitely better than the Selvans. Don't go there, don't go there. Yes, well, it carved that just fine, and if it can carve a notch like that, it can carve most things. Alright, perhaps be a bit awkward to carve a spoon. Right, let's try and light this thing. Yes, easier in perfect conditions with a really nice small feather stick, but I still think that is too small. Imagine doing that with cold, freezing cold hands, shaking, wet. No, it's too small. You want something you can just give it a good hard scraping with, and that's just too small. Right, so using the swedge in the block, that works fine. But if it's not embedded in a block, you just can't get the pressure. Are you going to always have a block of wood? Something solid? Probably not. Ooh, I've just had a thought. If I do it this way, can I light some rubber? We'll see. It's just not sharp enough. Well, that's fun. The tip worked, the blade didn't. Well, but you do need a really fine edge to cut that stuff up. Yeah. Well, that brought it back. Yes, it needs a stropping. Oh yeah. Marked improvement. Yes, a very nice knife and a very comfortable knife to use. I'm particularly impressed with the sheath, apart from the fact the ferro rod didn't fit properly, so I don't know what ferro rod they're designed for, but it's not to light my fire because it's too tight. Apart from that, this is a lovely knife and you won't go far wrong with one of these. I think I still prefer my Falcon Evans, and they're cheaper, the Pro and the X, but it's certainly a lot better than the Selvans. It hasn't got a coating for a start, which I detest. Right, well, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your comments, I appreciate your views, and I certainly appreciate a thumbs up. Until the next time, ta-ra! Well, unfortunately this timber isn't particularly good. It's dry, it's ash, which doesn't... I got a burp. Oh. Oh. Now this is my first attempt of scraping a ferro rod with this knife. Start again. One last thing. Well, it's not my last thing because I'm going to talk a bit more after. If you're new to the knife game and you think that buying a really good knife will save your life, you are sadly mistaken. Unless you carry the right stuff with it, it's not going to work for you. If you're going to use this knife, I think you're going to light your fires with it. I suggest you put a little pouch or something or some Ranger bands, carry a scraper and carry some tinder, and then you'll be fine. Right, let's drop some wood.